And I want you to turn to the book of 1 Kings, chapter number 14. 1 Kings, chapter 14. And we'll begin the reading in verse number 1. We'll read down to verse number 18. 1 Kings, chapter 14, and verse number 1. I want to say thank you to Pastor Ogle and to the Faith Baptist Church for all that you've done for us this week. And it's been a blessing to be here. I know many have come up and thanked me and my family for coming, but I thank you for letting us come. It's been good. Amen. Y'all been good to us, and we thank you. Amen. 1 Kings chapter 14, verse number 1. At that time Abijah, the son of Jeroboam, fell sick. And Jeroboam said to his wife, "Arise, I pray thee, and disguise thyself, that thou be not known to be the wife of Jeroboam. And get thee to Shiloh. Behold, there is Ahijah the prophet, which told me that I should be king over this people. And take with thee 10 loaves and crackers and a cruse of honey, and go to him. He shall tell thee what shall become of the child." And Jeroboam's wife did so, and arose and went to Shiloh, and came to the house of Ahijah. But Ahijah could not see, for his eyes were set by reason of his age. And the Lord said unto Ahijah, "Behold, the wife of Jeroboam cometh to ask a thing of thee for her son, for he is sick. Thus and thus shalt thou say unto her, for it shall be when she cometh in that she shall feign herself to be another woman." And it was so, when Ahijah heard the sound of her feet, as she came in at the door, that he said, "Come in, thou wife of Jeroboam. Why feignest thou thyself to be another? For I am sent to thee with heavy tidings. Go tell Jeroboam, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, for as much as I exalted thee from among the people, and made thee prince over my people Israel, and rent the kingdom away from the house of David, and gave it thee, and yet thou hast not been as my servant David, who kept my commandments, and who followed me with all his heart, to do that only which was right in mine eyes, but hast done evil above all that were before thee. For thou hast gone and made thee other gods and molten images to provoke me to anger, and hast cast me behind thy back. Therefore, behold, I will bring evil upon the house of Jeroboam, and will cut off from Jeroboam him that pisseth against the wall, and him that is shut up and left in Israel, and taketh away the remnant of the house of Jeroboam, as a man taketh away dung till it all be gone. Him that dieth of Jeroboam in the city shall the dogs eat, and him that dieth in the field shall the fowls of the air eat, for the Lord hath spoken it. Rise therefore, get thee to thine own house, and when thy feet enter into the city, the child shall die. And all Israel shall mourn for him and bury him, for he only of Jeroboam shall come to the grave, because in him there is found some good thing toward the Lord God of Israel in the house of Jeroboam. Moreover, the Lord shall raise him up a king over Israel, who shall cut off the house of Jeroboam that day. But what, even now? For the Lord shall smite Israel as a reed is shaken in the water, and he shall root up Israel out of this good land, which he gave to their fathers, and shall scatter them beyond the river, because that they made their groves, provoking the Lord to anger. And he shall give Israel up because of the sins of Jeroboam, who did sin, and who made Israel to sin." And Jeroboam's wife arose and departed and came to Tirzah. And when she came to the threshold of the door, the child died. And they buried him, and all Israel mourned for him according to the word of the Lord, which he spake by the hand of his servant Ahijah the prophet. I want you to look back with me in verse number 12, where I'll take my text tonight. Arise, thou therefore, get thee to thine own house, and when thy feet enter into the city, the child shall die. I want to preach tonight on that thought. When thy feet enter into the city, the child shall die. At this time, the nation of Israel has been divided into two separate kingdoms: the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. Solomon, who had reigned on the throne, has died. And because of his sins, God said that he would rend the kingdom into two separate parts, leaving the house of David only two tribes. Solomon had a son by the name of Rehoboam that ascended to the throne after his death. Rehoboam, when he became king, the first thing that he did, the people gathered together and came to him and petitioned him and said, Solomon, if you will just lighten the load a little bit, Rehoboam, if you just lighten the load a little bit. Solomon had become so excessive with the burden and the taxes that he had laid upon the people and made it very difficult for them. And they said, Rehoboam, if you just lighten the load a little bit, it'd sure be a great thing and help us out in this time. And Rehoboam told him, he said, you give me 3 days and come back in 3 days and I'll give you my answer. And the Bible said that he first got with the old men and he got counsel from them. Thank God for the old men, amen. I appreciate that preaching this morning by Brother Pemberton. What counsel, amen. And they gave him some good counsel. They said, son, they said, if you listen to them, you'll lighten the load a little bit now and ease their tax burdens. He said, they'll serve you forever. But he wasn't satisfied with the counsel of the old men. Too bad today that the young preachers won't listen to the old preachers, amen. And they want to find their contemporary buddies that have done compromise and gone the way of the world. You better forget about these young contemporary preachers that have forsaken the old path. Just listen to God like we heard this morning and listen to what they've got to say, amen. So he got his buddies and his peers that he had been raised up with, and they foolishly told him, they said, listen, you tell them that your little pinky is going to be thicker than your father's loins, and you tell them that though your father chastised them with whips, you're going to chastise them with scorpions, and you're going to increase it instead of decrease it. So in 3 days, the people came back to Rehoboam, and he gave them an answer according to the counsel of the young men. And he said, my little pinky is going to be thicker than my father's loins. And though he chastised you with whips, I'm going to chastise you with scorpion. And there was rebellion in the kingdom. The Bible said that 2 tribes stuck with Rehoboam. But then 10 tribes took the man that we have read about in the text tonight by the name of Jeroboam. And they made him king over the northern kingdom. Now Jeroboam, when he became king, and stay with me now, I'm setting the foundation for the message tonight. But when Jeroboam became king, he was aware that if the people went up to Jerusalem to worship, then of course they turned back to Rehoboam, and that would mean his life. So he set up 2 false calves and said, these are the gods that brought you out of Egypt. And he set up a false altar in a place called Bethel. And he set the lowest of the people to be priests. Yes, sir. He forsook the God-ordained method of the sanctification of the priesthood. He chose out the lowest. That's exactly what a lot of people are doing today. They don't want a man of God that is, like God said, sanctified and separated. They're going to go find them somebody that's of the lowest of the people, got no more standards, no more convictions than what they got. That way they can live any way they want to live. That's what Jeroboam did. And so he sets these up for his preachers, and they're false prophets, and he's got these golden calves, and he's got this altar set up in Bethel. But God sent him a message. Had a young man that come up, a young prophet of God, and he cried out against the altar of the Lord and said, "Oh, altar, altar." And he made prophecies about that altar and how that they were going to rend. And when he cried out against the idolatry that Jeroboam was setting up in Israel, Jeroboam got mad. Stretched out his hand and said, "Take him." When he did, his hand dried up and withered. When he drew it back in and he realized that the judgment of God had fallen upon him, he cried out to the man of God for help. And the man of God prayed for him. Amen. And right before his eyes, God healed that man's hand that he had stretched out to take the prophet of God. Saw the miracle, saw the power of God. But it didn't change him. He went right on in his idolatry, went right on in his immorality, went right on in his heathenism, and he led the entire northern kingdom of Israel away from God. And so now we come to chapter number 14 that we've read here tonight. And we begin to see the judgment of God upon the house of Jeroboam for what he's done. And what I want you to see tonight, that this judgment fell upon one of his children. He had a child, a son, that fell sick. And when this child fell sick, Jeroboam told his wife, he said, "Listen, this doesn't look good." And it's amazing to me why he didn't go get one of those priests that he had ordained from the lowest of the people. I'm going to tell you, he knew they didn't have any touch with God. I'm going to tell you something. If you think you're a preacher that runs around in a pair of shorts and listens to country music, is going to be able to get in touch with God for you when one of your children or you need help, you got nothing coming. Ain't sinful. He said, "Now, sweetheart, I want you to disguise yourself so that he doesn't know it is the wife of Jeroboam. And I want you to go find Ahijah the prophet. And when you find him, I want you to inquire and get him to pray about the child and let us know what's going to happen to him." So she disguised herself. She made her way down to the house of Ahijah the prophet. And he's an old man. He's blind physically, but oh, he could still see a lot spiritually. And God had already told him that she was coming. Told him who she was and what she wanted and what he was to tell her when she got there. She makes her way up to the house of Ahijah, and she steps on the porch. Before she knocked on the door, he said, "Come on in, wife of Jeroboam." Amen. He said, "Because God has sent me with some heavy tidings for you." She came in and he told her, he said, "Listen, God took Jeroboam, made him the king of the northern kingdom, established it for him, took the kingdom out of the son of Solomon's hand and put it in his hand, but he's turned his back on God. He's going to idolatry. He's led the whole northern kingdom away into idolatry, and because of that, it's judgment time." That's right. And he said, "Ma'am, when you leave here, when your feet enter into the gates of the city, that child's going to die." And so she left Ahijah that day. She made her way back to the city, and the Bible said when her feet crossed the threshold of the gates of that city, I mean, just like the man of God said, just as soon as her feet crossed over the threshold of the gates of that city, immediately the child died. And they had a funeral and burial. And I will preach tonight on this thought: when thy feet enter into the city, the child shall die. You see, friend, tonight it wasn't just a physical death and a physical sinning. And it wasn't just that her feet crossed the threshold there of a literal city and a physical physical city, but I'm telling you tonight, there were some spiritual cities that both her feet and Jeroboam's feet had entered into that was the real reason for that child's death. I want to say tonight, as people of God, there are some spiritual cities that you and I, as God's people, as a Christian mama or a Christian daddy, our feet, there are some cities that our feet can enter into that can bring about the spiritual death of our children. And I do believe tonight that there are multitudes whose feet have crossed over that threshold, and as soon as their feet entered into those cities, spiritual death fell as the judgment of God upon the children. I want to give you 4 cities tonight that I see their feet entered into spiritually that brought about the death of this child. Number 1, there is the city of touching God's anointed. We saw Jeroboam enter that city in chapter 13. God sent him a man with a message. And God still has some men that he'll send with a message. He has men that he'll send with a message, and sometimes you'll think that they know all about you and they don't know a thing. But God can still send a man with a message. And God sent a man with a message, a young prophet. And he cried out against the sin of Jeroboam, called it what it was. It's idolatry. This altar is wicked. It's set up in worship to heathen gods. And he pointed his hand out and his finger to the sin of Jeroboam. But you know what Jeroboam did? He got mad about it. I will tell you something. When a man of God preaches on your sin, you can do one or two things. You can get mad or you can get right. I mean, I don't know anything else. You can get mad or you can get right about it. It's hard when a man of God preaches with the power and the anointing and the unction of the Holy Ghost and calls your sin by name, especially if it's pointed out like it was with Jeroboam and other people are standing around and they know it's you. If you're not careful, you'll get real mad. I mean, how could he embarrass me like that? I'm the king. I mean, he should have called me aside. And he should have maybe told me this in private. Well, God wanted it preached in public, amen. And the man of God preached and gave the message that God had ordained him to give. But instead of getting right, instead of falling down and saying, oh, preacher, you're exactly right. I'm not right with God. I've led the whole country astray, and fall on his face and say, God have mercy. He stretched out his hand and said, take him. Lay hands on him. Lay hands on him. We know right then God spoke that arm, dried it up, withered it up. And I'm going to tell you, the judgment went further than that, friend. This child dying was a direct result of his daddy having entered into the city of touching the anointed of God. And I want to say to the church here tonight, it's a very serious thing to lay your hand and touch the anointed of God, insomuch that when your feet enter into the city of touching God's anointed, the judgment of God may be reaped in the death spiritually of your children. The Bible says in Psalm 105, verse 15, touch not mine anointing. Do my prophet no harm, amen. I'm going to tell you, it ought to be a fearful thing for God's people to do any kind of harm to God's man. I mean, you don't touch him physically. You don't touch him with your tongue. You don't touch him emotionally. You don't touch him and try and hurt him financially. I mean, anyway, his wife, his family, his children. It is a serious thing to touch and hurt the anointed of God. You say, well, who is God's anointed? Luke 4:18. Jesus said, the Spirit of the Lord God is upon me because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel. I'm going to tell you, if he's been called of God to preach, he is the anointed of God. He may not be a big name preacher. Don't do him any harm. You know who wrote that in Psalms? And who said that? David. David was God's anointed. But David said, though I'm God's anointed, I'm not going to touch it. God's anointed. Now, I'll say something to the preacher tonight. Be good. We practice what we preach too. Saul was the anointed of God, and Saul wasn't right either, friend. He is wrong. He chased David. He did David wrong. David had to flee his country and flee his land. Never lifted his hand against Saul. He had his chance too. And there's some of the brethren say, get him. Get him. I mean, look, God's delivered him right here into your hand. And David succumbed a bit to the temptation and took out his sword and cut off the skirt of his garment. But oh, it smote David's heart. I think I probably cut off the few skirts, but oh, my heart would smack me. David said, how can I seal and touch the anointed of God? How can I do that? But it's amazing how we've got people in churches all over the place now. They can do more than cut off the skirt of the garment. I mean, they can land blast and go all the way, hurt the preacher, hurt the preacher's wife, speak evil of the preacher's kids, do damage to his ministry, and have no fear, and their heart never spiked. Well, I'm here to tell you tonight, you can enter into the city of touching God's anointed. But you better look around to your left and right. Amen. Amen. And you better see some children tonight that you better read that. There's one pastor in this church. There's other preachers, but there's one pastor. And I'm going to tell you, preachers can be a great blessing in a church. But they can almost be a curse too. I've got a young man here tonight that's out of our church. He's a preacher. And he's been a great blessing to me. Had never been a good one. If I told him to get up now and go walk outside and stand there till I finish preaching, he'd get up and go walk out there and stand there till I finish preaching. And I'm not a lord over God's heritage. And I'm going to tell you something tonight as a preacher. You better be careful. Just because you've been called of God to preach, you ain't been called of God to pastor this church. Amen. And there's one anointed as far as this pulpit is concerned, and he's sitting right there. Amen. If he said, Brother Vangiller, you're done, sit down, I'd go sit down right now. Amen. Yes. Touching the anointed of God. I, years ago, had a woman in our church. She got saved. Her husband got saved. She had 3 boys. 2 of the boys had gotten saved. And then the 3rd boy took 5 years, the oldest boy. We prayed for that boy and prayed for that boy and preached to that boy. And finally, after 5 years, that oldest boy got saved. I mean, they, for 5 years, I'm telling you, wrote me letters. Preacher, you're the best thing that we've ever known. Thank God for you. That woman, I'm telling you, wrote me a letter and said, I want all my boys to grow up, and when they grow up, be just like you. And I'm telling you, within a year from when she wrote that letter, brother, that same woman sat there in the pew, and when I preach on some things that I've done been preaching all the time while they was there, they had lined up with most every bit of it already. But I'm telling you, some rebellion got in her heart, and I preach on some things, and I'm telling you, she'd sit there in the pew and shake her head just like that. Rebellion got in her heart, and her husband called me one day on the phone, and he said, preacher, and I could tell he was quite frustrated, and he said, Pastor, I just had to call you and apologize. He said, we've been sitting around here at the table, and he said, we've been talking about you, and we've been running you down, and he said, I finally got to the place where I told him, we're not going to do this anymore, and I'm not going to put up with it, and I had to call you and apologize to you about it. But she didn't. She got worse and worse. And that little boy, God he announced the call to preach. He wasn't about 13 years old. But I'm telling you, that boy was on fire. He'd go out with me out street preaching and soul winning. He'd preach up in the church. I let him preach in the church. I'd take him out on house-to-house visitation, and I'd talk to people, and I'd say, Michael, stand up and preach. And he'd preach right there in Sinner's house, preach messages. Amen. Loved me, loved the church, had a great, bright future looking ahead of him. And I'm telling you, things finally come to the place under the leadership of that mother. That whole family left, and she drug him out down the road and across the county line to another church. And they hardly had no standards of conviction. And I'm telling you, that 13-year-old boy literally idolized me and looked up to me and had something in his heart that he wanted to do right. He said, I don't want to go, I don't want to leave, I don't have any choice in the matter. And I'm telling you, friend, a couple years later down the road, that boy's done taken off and he's in sin. And I don't know where he's at tonight, but he got out of church and he sure ain't preaching now. And he went the way of the world. He said, preacher, well, he wasn't saved. Well, I mean, he wasn't saved. But I'm telling you, God was doing a work in his heart. But she killed him spiritually. She killed him. I like Brother Owen. And I have not known him but a week. The preacher, the more I've been here, the more I like him. And you may not like what he preaches. I don't know. Listen, I don't know who I'm preaching to tonight. Maybe you may not agree with everything he says. You may not like it because he got standards to sing in the choir. I say amen. That's the way it ought to be. Amen. Play one of these instruments. Sing a song, stand in this pulpit, be in a place of leadership, teach a Sunday school class. Brother, you study it out. Those priests and Levites, they served in the temple, and anybody that did service in the temple had to be sanctified and separated. It was different enough. You might come visit, you might come offer a sacrifice, but if you sang, if you did the service of God, if you did anything in that temple and tabernacle, there was some separation and sanctification processes that the others didn't have to do. I'm for it, brother. Amen. He said, well, I don't like it. You better just be real careful. Just be real careful. Because you got some little children watching. That's right. And I'll tell you what the best thing, church, you could do for your pastor, not just those who are Faith Baptist, but if you're another church, one of the best things you can do for your children is make that man of God that's standing up there preaching to them the Word of God, the closest thing to God in their minds that they can imagine on this earth. You say, preacher, that sounds like idolatry worship. You call it what you want, but I'm telling you, it's kind of like this. There was a woman who said, well, you know, the preacher had preached about, the modest dress and the pants and the shorts on the girls and the immorality of it. And her daughter went home that day and said, Mama, what do you think about that? And wearing the shorts and the pants, I mean, we've done it. What do you think about it? And she said, well, honey, the preacher's a good man, but he means well, but he ain't always right. A couple of years went by and that girl went wild. Ended up getting pregnant and shacking up with a boy. She came to the preacher and said, preacher, said, oh, would you go see my daughter? And would you try to say something to her? Would you try to talk to her? He said, ma'am. He said, back then when I preached to her about the shorts and the breeches and the immodest dress, you told her the preaching wasn't all right. And he said, I'll be honest with you, she ain't going to listen to a thing I say about that. You may not agree with it, brother, but I'm going to tell you, when he's standing up here preaching about fornicating and preaching about drugs and preaching about alcohol, one thing ought to be in the head of those children and in their hearts. That's God's man. He's preaching God's word, and God will listen. Number two, the city of hypocrisy. Amen. Jeroboam's wife entered into this city in the chapter that we've read. The Bible said that she disguised herself and she feigned herself to be another woman. That's what hypocrisy is, amen? It is disguising yourself. It is as you think. But I'm going to tell you who you will not feed, who I will not fool. It'll be those children that are watching us every day of our life. We train ourselves to be somebody different when we come to see the man of God. Amen. See, she left the house as one person, but when she went to see the man of God, she's disguised herself to be somebody else. How many times have God's people do that? We're one thing at the house, but when we go to the house of God, we disguise ourselves and we feign ourselves and pretend to be somebody that we really are not. But our children see who we really are. And I'm telling you, there's nothing that will kill a child spiritually any quicker than hypocrisy. Amen. Hypocrisy. Years ago, I was in a camp meeting down in South Georgia. We've got a big family, you know that, 11 children. And people see you with a big family and they just think, Brother Goolsby, automatically, you know, everything's just perfect. Oh, yeah. And they think, be honest, they think in their mind, you know something about raising children. And this has been years ago. This has probably been 10. Oh, this has probably been 15 years ago. 10 or 12 years ago. There was a young missionary there. He had a couple of little children. And we went to the fellowship hall to eat afterward. And he said, Brother Vangiller, come here. So won't you sit down and talk to you a minute? And he asked me, he said, I want you to tell me some things about the children and what I can do, to keep from losing my children. Yeah. And Brother Goolsby, I knew a whole lot more back then than what I know now. I knew a whole lot more back then than what I know now. Yes. Yeah. I told him a few things, But I knew a little bit of the story. He was actually a missionary's child himself. And there were 3 children in their family. And I told him, I said, brother, and I knew the story. He was the only one out of that family that was serving God. And so I said, brother, and one of the daughters, there was a daughter, another son, just went to the world, went wick and by. That daughter was a waitress in a topless bar. What preacher here would love to be living with that tonight? Yeah. Preacher's wife. And so I asked him, I said, I want you to tell me something to help me. I said, with your situation, your family, I said, what do you think was the reason that you're serving God and your sister's, topless bar? And he told me, he said, preacher, and Brother Ogle, he didn't bat an eye. He didn't have to sit and think about it. Hardly before I finished, he said, hypocrisy. Yeah. And he said, Brother Vangiller, he said, my mama, he said, my daddy's a good man of God, tried to do right. He said, but my mama, he said, we'd go off to camp meetings. He said, we've been to camp meetings. We've sang all across the country in some of the biggest camp meetings around here. He said, we'd go off to camp meetings. He said, she'd get up and sing, and boy, she'd shout, and the whole congregation would shout, and boy, you'd think God was all over the place. He said, but we'd go back to the house, and it was an entirely different story. Yeah. He said, I've seen her tell my daddy, you sit down and shut up. Full of rebellion. So my daddy be trying to instruct us or maybe going to discipline us or something other, and she'd stand up there and sit down and shut up. And he'd sit down and shut up. And he said, we saw this and we lived with this and a double standard, and they'd come to church and she'd act so spiritual and act like she was a great wife and just as mean as the devil back home. And he said, that's what killed my brother and sister. And I looked at him, and he got saved at a young age. And I said, brother, I said, thank God you got saved at a young age, or you probably would be right with their attitude. Right. Yes. Brother Jacob got up here tonight and he was singing and testifying and playing that instrument. You got any preaching? If you're a young preacher, it just comes out.
Yes, sir.
He got up here and him and his wife was singing. They was going to sing the other night, and just like tonight, before he got to sing, the boy got to testify and preaching a little bit, you know. And we sat in the fellowship hall with them, and several nights they've been sitting across from us, and we just been trying to fellowship with them a little bit. And I told him that night, I believe it was, it might have been the night before they did it, but I told him, I said, when you were up there singing the other night and really preaching and testifying really was what it was good, I said, I want you to know I was looking at your wife.
Amen.
And he had a puzzle look like some of you got right now, maybe. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I was watching your wife to see if you were real.
Amen.
So I'm thinking about having him come preach. And if he's going to come preach, I want him to be real. So I was watching his wife while he was exhorting and preaching and testifying, and watching her while she is looking at him. I said, I was watching her to see if you were real. And I told her, I said, don't you ever forget that either as a preacher's wife. I said, people's going to watch you when he stands up and preaches, and they're going to take a look over at you, and if you just got no interest in what he's got to say, and you just got a careless attitude about it, I said, that's going to tell them something about him. And I told him, I said, listen, I said, I don't care a whole lot what a lot of people think about me. I'm just that way. I said, I don't care what they think about me. I said, but I'm going to tell you, there's one person who I care that thinks about me. What I said, that's that woman sitting right here, my wife. And I said, if she can't have confidence in me, there ain't no need for me to get up and try and preach to anybody else. But I'm telling you also, those children sitting there, if they don't have confidence in me, I might as well sit down and shut my mouth. But mom and dad, if your children don't have any confidence in you, amen. I had a hard time coming to preach this message. I preached this message 15 years ago, and I preached it in meetings. I've seen God use it. But that was before my daughter. And I'll be honest with you, Brother Booth, I put it up. I haven't preached this message in a long time. My daughter turned 18, and I couldn't do anything about it. And she decided she didn't want these rules and standards and convictions anymore. And she left home. Lives in South Carolina now. She's 24, I guess. God needs to be saved. Now, I just want to say this tonight. What the devil will beat you to death. Beat you to death. She comes around, she won't put on her pants to come around the house. Dress sure ain't long enough, but it is a dress. She's got that much respect for me and her mama. She's 24 years old. She was in church, I guess, maybe 5-6 months ago, came to visit us and came to church. And even though she's where she's at, lost, needs God, ain't even going to church much of anywhere. She stood up and she testified in the service. And the essence of her testimony is, in reality, what she was saying, I ain't where I need to be and I ain't what I need to be. But I had a mom and a daddy that trained me right. And I want to tell you something. Just because something happens to them don't mean you were a hypocrite.
That's right. That's right.
And I'm going to tell you before God, and I sat there and wept tonight and rejoiced as Brother Ogle testified and rejoiced over that, but yet there's an aching in my heart. But I'm telling you, I could not sit there and be able to bear it tonight if I knew it was because of my hypocrisy.
Right. Yes, right. Yes,
Are you what you are? When you go to the house of God to see the man of God, that you are at the house. Do they see hypocrisy? Number 3, when thy feet enter into the city of backsliding. Jeroboam's an Old Testament backslider. At one time, he was part of the nation that worshiped the one true God. And he is an Old Testament backslider. God said now in verse 9, thou hast cast me behind thy back. He's an Old Testament backslider that has gotten away from the real house of God. He's gone down to a place now where the priests are from the lowest of the people. They're not preaching against anything. They're worshiping false gods with you. They've got no standards, no convictions. He is backslid on God. And his feet entered into the city of backsliding. I want to say to the parents tonight, when thy feet enter into the city of backsliding, the child's going to die. I remember here tell years ago, heard a preacher tell of an incident. Said he got a phone call from a man that he didn't know. And he asked him, said, sir, you don't know me. He said, but would you come and preach my son's funeral? He said, he's dead. He got the information, didn't know the man, never met the man in his life, didn't know any details about it. Figured he'd find out a little bit more at the funeral home. He gave him all the information about the viewing, about the funeral services and all of that. And the preacher said that when he got to the funeral, said he noticed that outside there were motorcycles all over the parking lot. It was filled up with a motorcycle gang. Said he went into the funeral service and he said that a bunch of rowdy motorcycle gang was in there and they filled the place up. And he said that they're so rowdy, said one of them tried to stick a shotgun in the casket with the boy was behind. So that broke out in a fight with the funeral director. Tried to put a shotgun in his casket. He said he preached that funeral. He left and went out to the graveside. Said still he's not seen the daddy, the boy that's called nowhere. And he said that he gave the graveside service and said those men got on their motorcycles and started popping their beer and drinking their beer and spinning off out that graveyard and knocking over tombstones and just going wild. He said finally the dust began to settle and they were all gone. And he was about to get in his vehicle and leave. And he said he noticed here comes a little car out into the graveyard, to the cemetery. So the car pulls up to him, a man steps out, nice clean cut looking man, and he stops the preacher and he says, brother, sir, preacher, he said, you don't know me. He said, but I'm the daddy of this boy. And he said, well, why weren't you here? He said, well, preacher, he says, a long story. He said, but I'll tell you something, I'll show you something. He pulled out his wallet, showed him a clean cut, young teenage boy. I mean, clean haircut, sharp looking. He said, I know you'd never know it. He said, but that's the boy that you saw in that casket. Long, shaggy hair and tattoos all over him and motorcycle gear on him. And he said, I know you would never know it. He said, but that's the boy that's laid in that casket. He said, preacher, I'll tell you the story. He said, tell it everywhere you go. He said, I got saved. My wife got saved. We got in church. We was raising this boy up in church. Said it was wonderful. We were serving God together. And he said things were going well. He said, but I got a job offer. And he said it required that I'd have to miss church on Sunday mornings. And he said, I knew I shouldn't do it. He said, but we needed the money. And he said, I went ahead and took the job. And I was thinking, well, I'll just take it temporarily and get out of it a little bit later on, maybe get some seniority and be able to move the schedule around and not have to miss on Sunday mornings anymore. And he said, so I started missing on Sunday mornings. And then he said that that little boy, he said he'd come in to the bedroom. And he said, church on Sunday, he said he'd come in. He said, and he said he used to love to go to church, loved the man of God, loved the house of God. And he said when we couldn't come, he said he'd come into my bedroom and he'd wake me up. He said, Daddy, can we go to church today? He said, I couldn't go to church today. Finally, he was out Sunday nights and the whole family's out Wednesday night. He said, that boy would come to me oftentimes and said, Daddy, can we go to church? Maybe later, son, but we can't go. He said, my whole heart got cold. Before long, he was completely out of church. Yeah. He said this went on a couple of years, and God began to deal with me, and things, the chastening hand of God began to operate in my life. And he said, I got things right with God. And he said, I'm getting things right. And he got things right. He went home, told his wife, we're getting things right. We're going to get back to church, and we're going to go to the house of God. But now, instead of the boy coming to his bedroom, he's going to the boy's bedroom. Now he's 15, 16 years of age. And he's saying, sons, let's get up and go to church. I don't want to go to church. And in those 2 years now, they took him out of the company that he could have been in influencing for Ray. Now he's in company that's influencing him for Ron. And he started running with the wrong crowd, and he ended up with this motorcycle gang. Left home in rebellion. Ended up in this motorcycle gang and was killed in a fight in a bar with this motorcycle gang. And he looked at that preacher and he said, preacher, with tears in his eyes, he said, that boy is laying in that casket today because of me backsliding on God. That's right. I'm going to tell you one reason I don't want to backslide on God. One's because I love him. And I'm going to tell you another reason why I don't want to backslide on God. And I want to stay right with God. I'm going to tell you there's a lot that backslid, just like Jeroboam, tossed God behind their back, started worshiping some idols. I want to ask you a question. Before you take that job on Sunday, you better look into the faces of your children, because it is idolatry, friends. You're doing the same thing that Jeroboam did. You're casting God behind your back. You're worshiping some false god of Mammon. Number 3, lastly, when thy feet enter into the city of sin. The Bible said in verse 16 that this thing that Jeroboam did was sin. It was great sin. It was idolatry. It was spiritual adultery, if you please. And it was an awful sin. And I'm telling you, the child died because the feet of his daddy entered into the city of sin. David committed adultery one time. And he repented and God forgave him. But I want you to look 9 months later, and there's a dead child. God can forgive you for your sin. But he will still visit the iniquity of fathers upon children, even to the third and the fourth generation. Years ago, on a Wednesday night, we went into the Dairy Queen after church and getting us a hamburger, ice cream, or something. And it's been a long time ago. My oldest boy's 28. And my 2 oldest boys were probably about maybe 10 and 12, something like that. And they come to church. They always had ties on and dressed up and come to the house of God like that's just the way we did it. And we went to the Dairy Queen that night and clean haircuts and nice shirts and ties and dress pants. And we went into that Dairy Queen, and I noticed there was a young man, probably maybe 19, 20 years of age, that was watching us. And he just kept looking at us, and we ordered, and he just kept looking at us, and he kept looking at us. And finally, after I got my order placed, I went over to him and handed him a gospel tract. I started to talk to him. And he said, yes, sir. He said, I've been watching y'all ever since you came in here. He said, your 2 boys. He said, I got a brother about the same age as the difference in you and your boys is the same age as me and him. He said, you know something? He said, I was looking at your boys, and he said, I just couldn't help but think back. He said, you see, he said, I was a preacher's son. Yeah. He said, I looked at your boys. He said, I couldn't help but think back. He said, you know, he said, remember back when me and my brother was about that age, he said, I looked at them and he said, we used to look just like that. He said, I know looking at me now, and I could tell he was a bit embarrassed. He said, you're looking at me now, had long hair, maybe some tattoos, some body piercing on him. He said, you wouldn't know it now. He said, but I used to look just like that. He said, we used to go out with my daddy, and he'd have his suit and tie on. And we'd have our ties on and suits on. And said he was an independent Baptist preacher. He said, I used to look just like that. And I asked him, I said, son, what happened? He said, well, preacher, you probably don't want to hear. And I said, no. I said, tell me. I said, what happened? He really wanted to talk, really, to be honest with you. He said, well, preacher, he said, we had a fine family, a fine home. He said, we had joy in serving God and in the church, and mom and daddy just had a wonderful home. He said, but my daddy ended up committing adultery. I don't know if this piano player or somebody in the church ended up committing adultery. And he said, oh, preacher, he said, it was such an awful time. Yeah. He said, my whole world just collapsed. He said, preachers would try to call my dad and talk to him, said he wouldn't even answer the phone. He said, my mama ended up eventually leaving my daddy, and me and my brother just went hog wild over it all. But he stood there and he looked over at my boys and looked back to me and he said, but I remember I used to be just like that. I used to be just like that. His name was Kevin. I still remember. And I left there that night and I said, oh God, don't ever let me forget Kevin.
Amen. Amen.
When thy feet enter to the city of sin, the child shall die. I'm going to tell you one thing, God put the fear of God in every one of us tonight.